Hi, my name's Dan. We're going to walk you through a tune-up on a Ford 8N, 9N, and 2N tractor. First thing we're going to do is I'm going to try to help you identify which particular Ford model you have. This tractor I'm standing in front of is a 2N Ford. I'm going to tell you why I know it's a 2N. The first thing to look at on a Ford tractor to determine which model you have, it's real easy to break it down from a 2N, 9N to an 8N. I have an 8N sitting behind me, and I have a 2N in front of me. A 2N is extremely similar to a 9N. The years 9, the 2N is, the 2 is significant, and the 8 is significant. The reason being that a 9N was built in 1939, a 2N started in 1942, and an 8N started in 1948. So unlike people tell you, it's impossible for you to have a 1943 8N Ford. Okay? So what we're going to tell you now is which particular model you have. This particular tractor here is going to be a 2N model because on the side of the tractor here, where the frame, where the reinforcement bars are, this bar here on this particular model tractor is made out of a piece of pipe, like a round hollow pipe. An axle that the radius arm hooks to the axle is a pipe, but it still has the rounded 3-speed gearbox instead of a 4-speed. And the last thing is that it has no nut on the rear axle. So this is a 2N. If it were a 9N, it would still have the same rear end as this one with a 3-speed gearbox, no nut in the rear axle, and it would have an I-beam radius on it. It looks like a little piece of I-beam with an eye up here in the middle and down here. So this is a 9N rail. Now this tractor would be a 9N Ford if it had this rail on it, had a 3-speed gearbox, and no nut in the hub. A lot of the 8Ns have running boards. The 9Ns and 2Ns don't, but this one here, somebody's made a real nice one. Most of the tractors I've bought and sold that were 2Ns and 9Ns have running boards on them. So just by the fact that it has running boards doesn't mean that it's an 8N. Another thing that's, there's a lot of little things that are different, but we won't go in detail. That'll break it right down for you. The 9N and 2N have 2 pedals on the left side, your clutch and brake, and then has 1 brake on the right. An 8N has 2 brakes on the right and your clutch is on the left. That's the other reason you can tell if you got a 2N, 8N, or 9N. We'll show you an 8N now. This is an 8N tractor, which this is a side distributor 8N, which right away, if the distributor's on the side, you know it's a 51 or a 52 Ford. The 8N has a nut sticking out of the rear axle with a different dish. Right away you can tell, bang, that's an 8N. Also, the transmission is flat on top instead of rounded. That helps you to determine that it's an 8N. This particular 8N with the side distributor also has the 616 front tires on it. We're going to cover all the tractors on the tune-up video. We're going to cover the side distributor as well as the front distributor. So bear with us here a minute. We're going to get ready to start repairing. We're going to start with changing the oil on the tractor. It doesn't matter if you have an 8N, 9N, or 2N Ford tractor. All the oil changes are the same. They all have a cartridge filter. Inside this little canister is a cartridge filter. We're going to change that for you now. It doesn't matter where you buy your cartridge filter. They make these, about every brand has one. AC has one, Frame has one, Wick. It doesn't matter. Just get a cartridge filter, look up your Ford tractor. The one I'm using is from a Tractor Supply type store. It's a Tisco filter. It's an APN 6731B. That's the filter that Ford takes from that type of filter, but it doesn't matter where you get it. The filter sets inside this canister. They come with a little handle on them so that you can pick the old one out and put the new one in. You got to drain the oil out of the bottom of the engine. It's got a big plug on the bottom. You got to get down underneath, put a pin under it, and you can get a crescent wrench right on that big nut and give it a turn, and they usually come out quite easily. Get the pan out of the bottom. The plug itself has a filter on it. It has a screen in it. When you get the plug out, you'll see the screen, and you have to actually pull the screen out. And the screen right there, it is like just a heavy, like a screen. We're going to pull it out here so that you can see it. It's just a heavy screen. You need to clean that up good. All the heavy stuff will stay inside that screen on the bottom of your oil pump. we'll just set that off to the side for right now. The next thing we need to do is get the filter itself out of the tractor. Most of your oil is going to look like this, nice and black. The thing on the cartridge is this lid is spring-loaded. So you take the nut off the top of the filter itself and give it a tap with it. You actually want to tap on that and spring-loaded. There's a spring right underneath the cover. It'll pop it right up for you. The screw will come out of the lid will come off, and there's your spring that spring loads the lid. And then, like I showed you on the filter, they have a little hook that you can just pick it up and lift it right out of the tractor. And there's the whole cartridge right out of it. And then we're going to drop the new one right in with the handle up, so next time we change the oil, the handle will be up and easy for us to get out. Got to get everything lined up and put it in. See, on an 8N model, it's tougher to put the filter in than it is on a 9N. You got to get everything lined up and then just push right back down in. Put your lid back on. And put your nut back in. And you got to wipe everything off, and you're ready to put your plug back in the bottom of the engine and add oil. On a Ford tractor, it's summertime now, so I'm going to put straight 30 weight oil in this tractor, a non-detergent straight 30 weight. I buy it in a bulk in a big jug, a 2-gallon jug. It takes 6 quarts with a filter. So we put a new filter in this tractor, and we're going to put 6 quarts of 30 weight non-detergent motor oil. I'm going to put my plug back in the bottom, clean the screen, and then we've got one important thing left to do, and it has an oil bath air filter. When you change your engine oil, you need to run around the other side of the tractor where your oil bath air filter is, pull that little cup off the bottom, and pour motor oil in there also. We'll do that in a minute. We're going to add 6 quarts of oil to this engine. You take your breather cap off, and that's where the engine oil goes. Right in there. I'm going to pour 6 quarts in here. The dipstick is down here, right down here. You want to go past full just a little bit because you're going to use a little extra oil up when the tractor starts up. When we're around the other side, I said we need to go do the oil bath air filter. When you change your engine oil, you need to change the oil in the oil bath air filter. It takes just regular motor oil in the bottom of this little cup, and on the cup it shows oil level and it shows a line. So you just take the motor oil that you used in the engine, and I've cleaned this out. I've cleaned it out. You'll see a lot of dirt in the bottom of this because that's what it actually catches, is all the dirt and everything. So when you change your engine oil, just add your motor oil both into the center and the outside of that cup. Just fill her up and bring it right up to the line that's on the outside there. Put it back on the tractor after you've cleaned it all out. Put fresh oil in there. Put it back in there and flip it back in. There you go. It's all back in. It's got fresh oil in here. That way the air comes in, goes through the fresh oil to the carburetor. Carburetor is the next thing we want to take care of and clean. I'm going to take it off the tractor right now, and then we're going to carry it over to the bench, and we'll rebuild the carburetor at the bench. To take the carburetor off the tractor, first thing you have to do is shut the gas line off over at the settlement pole. I've already done that. Still, I put a can down underneath to catch the gas that's in the line. When you take this carburetor off, you don't want to have any open flame or be welding or smoking, anything like that, because you do lose gasoline out of here. First thing I do is take the gas line off. The gas line on these Ford tractors goes into a filter also right here. And we'll take that apart when we get over to the bench. And you'll see that filter in there. And some of the tractors, some people have cut the filter off them or damaged them, put a hole in them or something because they've found bad on. If this one's bad, we're going to put a new one on. There's 2 screws in the top of the carburetor, 2 nuts. You have to take them 2 nuts off. And I'm going to take them 2 nuts off now. And then there's a choke cable in the back and your throttle cable in the back. They just slip on. They're like on a little ball. And you can just slip them, push them forward, and I'll show you when we get one off. You have your air tube coming from your oil bath air cleaner. has a screw on the clamp. Take that off. Once you get your nuts off, the carburetor come off. And on the back side here is your choke cable and your throttle cable. These little cables, if you can zoom in on this, Jennifer, it just pushes forward. I just push it on the end of the rod, and it lets the ball loose, and then you just let go of it, and it comes off. And here's the carburetor. We're going to take the carburetor over to the bench. We'll take it all apart and show you how to rebuild it. We're going to rebuild the carburetor now. We've got it on the bench. We want to take it all apart. Take your gasket off the top. The gasket set will come with a new one. You got 4 screws that hold it together in the top of the carburetor. And also, before you take the 4 screws out, take your long needle jet out. It's real long. It runs down to the bottom. You don't want to bend that when you take the carburetor apart. So it's best to take that out first. Take your 4 screws out of the carburetor. They're all the same length. You don't have to worry about one being longer than the other. So you can just set them off to the side in any order. They're all the same. Doesn't make a difference. You have to save them because the new kit doesn't come with 4 new ones. We're going to put them ones back in. Take all 4 of them out, loosen it up, and it'll come apart. Set the top off the side for now because we're going to work on the bottom. This is your Venturi. We got to save that because you're going to put that back in. Down inside the carburetor is your main jet there. We have to get that out. It takes a 3/8 deep well socket. Get that out of there. And they're in there quite tight usually, but you got to get that out. We want to clean that, especially if the tractor's set around. It'll be all full of rusty junk. So we want to get that out of the bottom. You just stick a deep well socket on it, keep twisting on it, then you get it out of there. They're long, very long threaded. It takes a few minutes to get them out. The thing with these, they got a gasket around them. So you got to dig that gasket out of there. I got to get it out of there. Okay. There's the little gasket. I got it out. It goes around the big long jet like that. The thing to look on this big jet is they have little holes in them. You got to get them holes clean, inside the tube clean. When we clean the rest of the carburetor, we'll take care of that. And that's the whole bottom of the carburetor. We've taken it apart. The thing to check on these, this is the #1 problem with starting a Ford tractor. There's a choke door in here. When you pull the choke, the little door closes. On that choke door, there's a little trap door inside there. Now this one here, when it closes, you can see I'm pointing with a screwdriver. There's the little door, and it has a little door over it. If that door is broke off or fallen off, take that out and repair it, or go get a new one. The carburetor kit does not come with that choke door. I've never seen one come. You have to buy them separately. It's worth the money to stop at this point, go buy the choke door and put the door back into that. Because if it doesn't seal off on a Ford tractor, it won't start, or they won't start well. So anyhow, we've got the bottom all taken apart. We're going to set that outside and we're going to work on taking the top apart. The top has the float on it, which is here, and it just has a pin that slides across and the float comes right off. In the float, if you shake it at this point here, if it's got a hole in it, it'll be full of gas and you'll feel it. This one is nice and light and there's no gas in it, so the float is floating. There's a gasket on top and that comes right off, and the gasket kit will come with a new one of those. Your needle and seat is right here. So I'm going to take, there's the needle, and the seat's still in the tractor, carburetor. Sometimes these seats come out extremely hard and you have to take and get a screwdriver and a hammer and actually get on the side of it with this and drive it until you loosen it up. Then you can get the big screwdriver back on the seat and drag it right out of the carburetor like that. Once you get these out, or get them loose, they come real easy. They're brass, so they're extremely soft. They also have a gasket underneath them, and there's the gasket underneath it. The new one will come in a gasket set, so we can throw that off to the side. That takes care of the needle in the seat and gets that all apart. The other thing we got to get apart is this is a filter inside here. It is also made out of brass, so you don't want to get a wrench on there and push on it. You'll collapse it and squeeze it. You want to use a very large, wide wrench from the bottom and twist them out so that you don't crush it. It's painted so it doesn't look like it's brass, but it's very soft brass. It has a filter on the end of it
right there. A lot of times those filters are plugged, or somebody's taking a pair of side cutters and cut the filter off. If any of those, if it's plugged or it's been cut off, just go buy a new one. They're very replaceable, very inexpensive. If that filter will plugged up, make the tractor run bad also. Now we got that all apart. The other thing that we want to check is our throttle shaft. And the shaft will get extremely loose. This one is extremely tight. It's a great shape. This is a new one that comes in the carburetor kit. All you got to do is you got to get down in there, take the 2 screws out, take your butterfly off, shaft comes out, slip the new one in. And the shaft is made out of brass, therefore the shaft will wear quickly, and you just replace the shaft. So here's a brand new one. This one doesn't need one, we're not going to put it in. So this one is real tight. And it moves easy, it doesn't bind. And the next thing we need to do is you got to blow all these little cracks out of here. And also in the bottom, it's a great idea to take an air compressor with a nozzle, put right in where you took your jet out. Right where you took this thing out, stick it right in there and blow. Safety glasses on, hold your head away. It's going to come out these 2 top holes right here when you blow that out. So I'm going to take, best to soak these, get all the little cracks clean, and that's what I'm going to do. If you have access to somebody that has a dip tank, or you can take them to an auto parts store, leave them overnight into a soak tank, get them out the next day, it'll be worth the effort because it'll be so much cleaner. All the little holes will be clean and everything will be just ready to put back together. At this point here, I'm going to go clean these, and then I'm going to come back and assemble it. I've got the carburetor all cleaned. Like I said, it's best to get all of those spots clean. This is the most important part of rebuilding the carburetor, is to get it extremely clean. First thing we're going to do when we put it back together is we've cleaned our long jet. Important to put this gasket on, a little gasket. You got to get that on there, stick it back in the hole, and then a 3/8 deep well socket, you can twist it back in. Get that in the bottom. It's brass, so you don't want to go crazy and cross thread it. Now make sure you start it with your fingers quite a few turns first. Once you got it started in there, it'll twist right in. You want to tighten it down tight, but you don't want to over tighten it and strip it out. I've got it tight. I just give it a snug and it's in there. Now I've got my jet back in, and that's what goes in the bottom of the carburetor. My choke door, I checked it. The little door is in there and it's closed, and it looks like it's sealing nice and tight. And it's not loose, the shaft is fine. We're going to put that back just the way it is. Clean the top of the carburetor off because I'm going to put a new gasket on. And that takes care of the bottom of the carburetor. Now we're going to work on the top of the carburetor. The top of the carburetor, first thing you got to do is put your needle and seat back in. Your seat, the new one, has a gasket that goes on the bottom of it, just like the jet does. Put that in there. Get it started with your fingers. You can twist it almost all the way in, just with your fingers. Get it right down there. It's brass also. Take a large, wide screwdriver, get across 2 holes, and it's got small grooves in it, so you got to be patient. Get it in there. Get it down to where it tightens right up tight. It has a gasket under it, so it's again, you don't have to over tighten this. You just got to get it snug so it seals and doesn't leak gas. Okay, I've got it nice and tight. Now I've got my seat in and it's tight. I'm going to drop my needle right in the seat. And there's the needle. The next thing I need to do is put the gasket on. I've got a new gasket. Again, the surface needs to be clean. You do not have to put Permatex or any kind of a sealant on this. Matter of fact, you don't want to. Just set the gasket on there. Put your float back on. And it has the little shaft that goes across there and just locks it right on there. Best do this upside down so you don't lose your needle and seat. You want to get that in the middle so it's got about equal amount hanging out on both sides. You just can't get your carburetor back on if you don't. We want to set this float. Now this one here, you want it to be straight across, about a 1/2 inch off. This one's too high. So I'm just going to give it a little bend, and I'm going to give it the other side a little bend. What I'm trying to accomplish is that it's too high. I want to get it down a little bit lower. You can use a pair of needle nose pliers and bend this. Matter of fact, that's what I'm going to get. I'm going to get a pair of needle nose and I'm going to bend this down just a little bit. Got me a pair of needle nose now. I'm going to grab right onto it here with a needle nose and give it a little bend, and it twists right down quite easily. Again, it's soft brass. Now what I've accomplished is I've got to where I've laid my needle nose in here. You can see if I put my screwdriver in there how straight and flat it is across there, and it's about a ½ inch from there to the bottom of the carburetor. So that's what I'm trying to accomplish, is it's straight across. It doesn't go uphill. I've got it bent flat. Put a new needle and seat in, you just about always got to reset the float, and this is a very important step. The next thing you got to remember to put in is you got to put the Venturi back in the hole. It's directional. It can only go in one way. It won't go in the carburetor that way, but it'll certainly, there, it's snug. It will go in that way. It won't go in the bottom that way. So I know this goes in the top of the carburetor. I like to put this inside here first because it goes into the gasket hard. You have to like pry it in there to the side a little bit. Drop it right in the carburetor so it's, you know it's in there. And it's in the right direction. Now that I've got my carburetor all clean, I like to keep this upside down and set my carburetor right over top of that Venturi so that I can get it to drop in. And you wiggle it. Now this Venturi here happens to be an aftermarket one. It's plastic, so it's a little different than the original brass ones, but it still looks the same. But you want to make sure when you put it down that your seal looks tight and it's in. The 4 screws that we took out from before, we're going to put them 4 screws right back in. Get them started with our finger a little bit. Twist them right in. You got to get all 4 of them in nice and snug. Again, you don't have to over tighten them. The carburetor shouldn't be wet anyhow. That float should come up and shut the gas off. And we should never have gas up on the side anyhow. So you don't have to Permatex this seal or anything like that and try and make it seal gas, because gas should never get to that point. Once you get these 4 screws back in and get them all tightened down, next thing we need to put on is we need to put our long jet that we took out of the back in. That goes right in the back. When you put it in, you want to feel and make sure that you're getting it in straight. It goes right in straight, and you want to take it all the way down to where it bottoms out. It'll bottom out there. When it bottoms out, to get it close to start, 2.5 turns out. 1, 2.5 turns. That'll be close enough for starting. Also, your idle jet here in the side, I took this out and cleaned that. There's a hole that runs all the way through. You want to blow that out also. It's a 1 7/8 or 1 3/4 a turn from bottom. So take it all the way down to the bottom and go 1 3/4. That's your idle, and that takes the flutter out of the idle, and you can fine tune that when we get it back in. The filter on the side is clean. The filter is on. You want to put that back in. Before I put that back in the side of there, I like to put a little bit of some kind of pipe dope on the threads. This pipe dope here, it's gas and oil resistant. It's by Loctite. I particularly like that one because it's gas and oil resistant. Stick that back in there with a little bit of Loctite pipe dope on there. You don't have to over tighten it or take a chance of smashing this. Again, like I said, it's soft brass. You want to use a real wide wrench on it so that you don't crush it. And you won't be able to screw your gas line back in. Now I've got it to where I think it's tight enough right there. I didn't look in there, make sure it's still round. I didn't crush it. On top, you got a new gasket. Goes right on top of there. Now I'm ready to take this carburetor and put it back on the tractor. We've got our carburetor all rebuilt. We're going to put it back on the tractor now. On the back side of the carburetor, you got your choke that slides on, and you got your throttle that's just pushed forward and slides on. So we got to put them 2 cables on. Put our 2 nuts on here and our gas line back in here. The gas line is brass, so you want to make sure that you get it started straight, not cross-threaded before you put a wrench on. You'll strip that right out. These are the easiest thing to strip out there is. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to put my choke cable on. It's easier to do it when you can aim off to the side. And remember, put your throttle on. If you wait until you get the carburetor in, it makes it a lot more difficult. It's easier to put your air tube here on the side on too before you put the carb in. Get everything all lined up as much as you can, like that. Slide it on. You just got 2 nuts Put it right back on. This is something that the tractor sets very often. You have to take this carburetor apart and clean it. It makes a huge difference on the way the tractor runs. And it's a big step to do on a Ford tractor, but it's easy to do and it's not very expensive. The carb kits are fairly cheap. I'm putting the two nuts on. I like to start them with my hands to where I know they're not going to cross thread. I've got them started. The gas line goes into the side. Again, you want to get it extremely straight and know that you're not going to cross thread it. I'm going to put a little bit of pipe dope on the threads. Again, I'm using the Loctite type pipe dope. It's gas and oil resistant. I like that. It sticks with them. You take this off. The next time you take this off, you'll still see it there. The gas doesn't affect it. So you can use anything you want. That's my preference. And I get it started with my fingers so that I know that it's not cross-threaded. And then I'll put the wrench on and go at it. I like to do that before I get crazy and twist something off. Okay, I got it started. I'm going to tighten that down and that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to start the tractor and we'll go through all the adjustments. Got the carburetor all bolted up to the tractor. I made sure these two bolts are tight. My gas line is tight. I've got no leak. Make sure I got no leaks. Especially with the exhaust being right here. It's not a good spot to have a gas leak. I'm going to start the tractor. I tried to start it. I'm going to adjust the fine tuning. Now on the carburetor, the screw that sticks out the side here, where my screwdriver is your fine tuning. That takes the flutter out on idle. That's your idle screw. The big screw in the back is your high-speed jet. Now, the idle screw is around back on the butterfly. That brings up it off an idle, and I want it to just come to a nice idle that I could drive around and not stall out. So I'm going to, in the back is your little screw. You need a real short screwdriver. Come up from the bottom, you can tighten your idle screw up. This screw on the side is going to take the flutter out. I'm going to try to get it to be real nice and smooth on idle. I'm going to just talk you through it right now because when the tractor's running, I don't know if you'll be able to hear me. I'm going to try to start it right now. Okay, I can live with that idle. That idle is good enough. I'm not going to mess with the idle screw in the back there. You can reach back there, you can feel it. That's a good idle. The idle screw on the side of the carburetor, you can hear it took the flutter out of it as I turned it in just a little bit. So that takes care of my idle screw. It's a nice, smooth idle, and that's what I want. Now, on the high speed, that's what I'm after on a high speed. On a high speed, I don't have any flutters, and it sounds just great. That's a good, clean, fine-tuned carburetor. Now we're going to go on and show you the tough part, putting points in a front distributor Ford tractor. This is a 2-in and a 9-in and 8-in with a front distributor. We'll show you the side distributor next. Right after this, we're going to do the side distributor tractor. But right now, we're going to show you how to get this off without taking the hood off and without taking the radiator off. You can take this distributor right out of the front of the tractor. It's keyed so that you can't put it back in wrong, so you don't have to be worried about taking it off. I'm going to take it off. When I get it out here, I'll show you where the screws are. Just try follow with me for a few minutes, and when I get it out here, I'll go over it in great detail how I got it out. The Ford distributor sits on the front of the Ford tractor, and it just has two screws, two bolts that hold it on the front of it. And the two screws, I'll show you better when I get it out. The coil sits on top of it, which you can leave right in the tractor. It just has a little clip here. I slid that clip back there that I'm wiggling back and forth. Just slide that clip forward, and the coil lifts right off the tractor. You can just set that coil right over top of the fan belt. You can get it to set up there. It'll set up there just great, right out of your way. Just like I did that. Just set that coil up out of your way because it's got the wire on it. You want to make sure the ignition is off the tractor when you're doing this, because if you did grab on that little electrode on the end, the coil was on, it can give you a pretty good jolt. Next thing we need to do is take the distributor cap off the front. It's got two little clips. This little clip right here that I'm wiggling with my finger, there's one on the opposite side to just snap up. And a cap then will just come right forward and just push that forward out of the way. Now, the rotor is inside there. I know you can probably see it. I can feel it. I looked at which way it was pointing before I took it off, and it's pointing to the opposite side of the tractor here. That's the key thing to remember. When we put the distributor back in, we kind of want to turn the rotor a little bit to clunk it into the gear. We'll know which way it needs to be pointing. So the end of the rotor was pointing that way when I took it off. We're just going to set that off to the side for now because we're going to put a new rotor on. You got to get the 2 screws off that distributor. Now I've loosened the one on the other side already. I've loosened this one up. Just give me a minute here and I'll get the screws out and we'll drop the distributor out. When I get it out, I'll show you where the screws are on the distributor itself. And when you get them screws loose, the distributor, it'll come right out of the tractor. You got to kind of wiggle with it a little bit to get it out of that tight hole there. Leave the cap, take the rotor off. You don't want to bring the wires with you, you want to leave them. And that distributor will come right out the side, right like that. And like I said, there's 2 screws, one here that's in the side of the motor. Just take a wrench and loosen that one, and one on the other side. It has a screw that goes through it. Takes a 1/2-inch wrench, they're not in very far, and they simply come right out, and the distributor just comes right out the front of the tractor. And the rotor that we took off, which is right here, we looked at which way it was pointing, and it was pointing that way. So when we put it back in the tractor, we're going to put it back that way. The back of the distributor is keyed, so it just drops right into the front of the tractor, so we don't have to worry about getting the tractor out of time. We took the distributor off. Actually, a front distributor 8N is very easy to change the points, because there's the points now. Now we can take the whole distributor over to the bench, and I'll show you how to put the points in. Got the distributor here on the bench, so that you can watch what I do. I'm going to put the points in. On a Ford 8N, 9N, and 2N, all of them with the front distributor, all take the same points. It's a 2-piece points. So when you go buy your points, you can look at them. Make sure that there are 2 pieces. You can buy points for these tractors just about anywhere. Even auto parts stores carry a set of points for the Ford tractor. So you just got to look for them. And make sure you get one that's 2 pieces. The 1-piece points, make sure you know which particular tractor you have when you go to ask for points. If you have a side distributor, Ford 8N, it takes 1-piece points, like a Jubilee. It takes the same points as a Jubilee series tractor. So on the front distributor, it takes a 2-piece, and on a side distributor, it takes a 1-piece. And we'll get to the side distributor in a minute. First, we're going to do this tractor here. We got to take the old points out. So you want to take and look at them for a minute before you take them out so that you can figure how your new ones are going back in. They have a little cotter key that holds the whole thing together. You just slip that cotter key out. There's a real special screw that the coil sets on up here on top that the points go to in your condenser. You got to get that out. We got a long, thin screwdriver. This is the tricky one. The one here on the side is the most difficult one of the bunch to get out. That one right there is very tough to get out. I'm going to try to just leave it in a little bit. Just before I get ready to take it out, I'm going to put my finger on it and you go ahead and take the screw out. Just let it fall down. You can shake it out. And there it is. That one there is a tough one to get back in. It's the toughest one of the bunch in here. After you get that screw there out, just take a pair of pliers and you can actually lift these right out of the shaft. And there's your points. The old ones on this tractor are burnt real good, so it's the right time to put new ones in. This piece that's on the bottom in there, you have to get that dug out. So you got 2 screws that hold that in. The other screw that's down here, this one right here, is the adjustment screw that moves it back and forth. You do not have to take that screw out. You just have to take these 2 here off to the side out. And then that piece there will come out. You got to take your little tab off the back here, this little strap right there. I took that strap off that's right there at the end of my pliers. You can grab onto that and that piece will come right out. On this set of points here, where your adjusting screw goes into this hole right here, and it's a slotted to where you can adjust the points back and forth, the screw gets smashed just a little bit. And it's a little bit wide. I have a chainsaw file here, and just take and file that hole out. It just needs to go a wee little bit so that they'll just drop right over the top of that screw. And there it is. This screw right here is your adjusting screw, and sometimes you have to take a file and just file it just a wee little bit. You don't want to take a drill motor and really hog it out because then you won't have an adjustment. But I had to take a file and I had to cut them just a little bit so it would fit over my screw. Over the years that screw's gotten smashed a little bit wider. So now I've got my points laid in the bottom. Now they must lay flat in the bottom. There's a post that sticks out here that has an edge on it. And that's what I've done now. I've made sure that they fit in there nice and flat. Next thing I need to do is put these points in. These are the new ones, and they have quite a spring to them here on the side, and that's what the challenge to get in. I get them started, and I just push them right in, and there you are. Now I've got them pushed right in, and once you get them in there, it's a little cotter key, and I mean a little one. It has to go in the hole and be bent back over. I got it in. Now that might take a little bit of time to get in there, and you got to bend it back apart, and that holds the points right in place. And there we are. I got the cotter key bent so it can't come back out the hole now. And you can see I got the cotter key in there, the points are in, and they're in nice. I got to put the screws back in the bottom of here. I'm going to use a self-starting screwdriver. I'm going to put it in there, and it'll hold the screw to where I can get the bottom screw started. That makes it a lot easier than trying to reach down over your fingers. There really isn't enough room for most people's fingers to get in there. And I got that one started, and then there's one up top. You have to get them both started. Don't tighten them down yet because we still got to adjust them. But at least we want to put all the parts back in. There, I just got them both started so they're cranked in, but the points are still loose, and I need to put this strap on with a screw on the side now. Now this is a real challenge to get all this here back in. There's a little tab that's from our top. That tab lays on top of the points first, so I like to smash that down the best I can. And I'm going to use a self-starting screwdriver again to reach through there with that screw that holds that together. I've got it on my screwdriver, and I'm going to reach in from the top and try to put that on there. What I done is I took my needle nose and I put the screw through the two straps, and then I twisted it a little bit and I got it started. Now I can take a screwdriver through here now and tighten it down. And it even takes a small screwdriver to slide up through there like that and then tighten down. And this is the toughest part here, is getting the screw back in. Once you get it started, it's nothing. It tightens right down. You have to have the strap that connects this to this. You have to have them two straps in the band there, and all in the screw at the same time. The cotter key has to be put in to hold it in place. Now I've got this screw in and this screw in. Neither of them are tight. This is our adjusting screw to adjust the distance. On top is a condenser. The condenser is quite easy. You just take the screw out of the top. That holds the condenser in. Put your new one in. And it just lays in there just like the old one came out. And it's just got one screw. You got to get the screw back in, so that's what grounds it. The screw grounds to the frame there. So you got to take a minute and get the screw back in and get it in tight so that it has a good ground. Once you get it where you want it, you can just tighten that screw right up. The condenser sits right in the top. And then the wire goes through the other side of the hole. This has a special screw on top. I'm going to take the screw out so I can show you the screw up close. The screw, the coil sits on top of the screw, and this screw is beveled in. It's like a dish. It's got a dish inside it. If it doesn't have this dished screw in there, go get one. Some people put a flat panhead screw on there, and your electrode for your coil comes down and sits on top of that. It needs to fall inside here because that's how it gets from the coil electrode down to the points. So this is quite an important piece in making contact. I got to put this back in now. You don't have to take it out because your condenser has a spade on it that just slips underneath the screw. So you put it through this side, take a pair of needle nose, and slip that spade underneath this beveled screw. And the beveled screw, like I said, is an important part of this. So now, and don't take it out like I did, because now I got to wrestle with getting it back in. So I'll put this screw back in, put my condenser under it, and then we'll show you how to set them. I got the screw in there. Underneath the electrode, I put the condenser, which is on top. I put that under that screw, and that screws in. So I got the beveled screw in. Our coil's going to sit on there. We need to set the gap on the points. The gap on the points, most point kits come with a little piece of feeler stock that's 18 thousandths. We're going to put it, we're going to turn this. You can turn it and see the points open and close. That's the best thing about a front distributor 8N. You can get it out here on the bench, and you can get the points just perfect. You don't have to roll the motor over. You just reach around back, and I'm turning I'm turning the rotor, and I'm going to turn it to where it's up on the high side of the cam lobe, and I'm going to make that gap 18 thousandths. So I'm going to stick my feeler gauge in there, and I'm going to, with the adjusting screw here on the side, I'm going to adjust it to get it locked in at 18 thousandths. After you tighten these screws down, you want to check it again. Sometimes after you drive that plate down, it'll move the adjustment. I'm going to stick my gauge in there, and it's nice and snug. So I've got it 18 thousandths. The thing you want to check for is you want to turn this over, make sure that they close. And they open and close, open and close, open and close. You want to make sure that it's working, that something isn't stuck or cocked off or bind. You want to make sure that this turns freely, and this does. It turns very freely. And at the points are opening and closing. I've made sure of that now. Now, I've got my points all done. I've made my adjustments. It's 18 thousandths. I'm going to put the little dust cover back over them. They just set in there like that. Now, I'm ready to put my rotor on, and I'm going to put this on in front of the tractor. So we're going to go back over the tractor and put this on and start the tractor up. We're going to put the rotor in the tractor and the distributor. I've got the points in it. I put the rotor on. Remember when we took the rotor out, we looked at which way was the rotor pointing. The rotor was pointing, this rotor here, was pointing in that direction. So we're going to put it back on in front of the distributor. It locks in, and you can turn it. We're going to turn it to where it's facing that way. As I put it in the front of the tractor, there's 2 bolts, one on each side. One there, there's one on the other side. There's also a gasket on here. You can see the gasket lift up here. There's a gasket around here because it does have oil up there in the front of the engine. I'm going to put the 2 bolts in, and I'm going to bolt it back on. As I put it up there, before you bolt it in, you want to wiggle the rotor, and you'll feel it clunk in. As long as the rotor is facing the right way, you got to kind of wiggle a little bit, clunk. It'll go right on the front of the tractor. You put your 2 bolts in and bolt it down. I'm going to do that right now. Okay, I've put the 2 bolts in the front of the distributor that hold it in there. It's tough for you to see, but when I had distributor out here, you see there was 2. I got it in there, and when you put the rotor in, you want to give it a little wiggle, and it'll go right into place. You want to make sure you have it in before you put the bolts in. Pull it down tight. It's an aluminum housing. If it's not in all the way to the block, you could break the housing. Don't want to do that. Now that we have the 2 ears bolted in, the cap is here. Now you can look at the cap from the back and see if it's bad. If it is, just pull it off here and change your wires and put one at a time on and put a new cap on. The rotor is in. You can see the rotor in there. I'm pointing to it right now. And the rotor's in. It's facing the same way it was before, and it's locked in. You can't wiggle it. You want to make sure that it's all the way on. It's pushed all the way on, and it is. And then that cap goes on first, and it just goes in there. I'm going to have to slip over here and snap that in. You got to have them 2 little snaps pushed off to the side. And I'm going to reach in there and snap that cap on. You'll feel it snap. You'll hear it snap also when you get the ears in the right place. I can feel it around the back side. There. And it snaps in, then you give it a wiggle. Make sure that it's tight, and look in there where my finger is there. Make sure you don't have a gap. It should be nice and tight on there. Now the little spring on top has to flip forward that the coil sets on. I got my hand on it right now. I'm flipping that forward so that I can set my coil on top. Before you set the coil on top, there's a little cork gasket that goes between the coil and the distributor. And the rounded edge goes to the front of the tractor. So I'm going to set that in there in place. And that kind of sets on top like that. The coil, we set it up on top here. I'm going to take that coil down and set it on top of the distributor, on top of that gasket, with the wire facing to the back. You can see it set right on top of the coil, and you'll feel it'll set into the right place. And you slip that little metal clip over the top, this clip here, and it slides over the coil and holds it in place. And it should be quite snug. And push on there hard. Now, I can see that it's set on there, and it looks like it's in the right place. Everything feels right. Now I'm going to try to start the tractor and make sure that everything does work right. I've got my cover on, the rotor's on. I'm ready to try to start it to see if it's bright. That's perfect. Things to look for. If you put the cap on, you put the coil on, you roll it over, and it doesn't want to start, don't panic. Pop the cap back off, and look for obvious things. One obvious thing that happens, these rotors just have a real loose little tinny top on. When you put the cap on, if you don't put it on exactly straight so that sets on here like that, it'll bend them. Bend it right out to the side. You'll roll it over, and you won't get any spark through this rotor. These rotors are cheap and chintzy. Pop it off. Look at the rotor. Make sure it's okay. Make sure you got the cap on right. Put it back together and try it again. Just some simple things to look for when you're putting these together. Right now we're going to go to an 8N side distributor, which is behind us. We're going to set up and we're going to show you how to put points in that. This is an 8N side distributor. The distributor is on the side of the tractor. That's a 51 and a 52 model Ford tractor. Usually you can tell that they have the wider front tires too. They usually have a 616 front tire on. And to do the points in these, you don't take the distributor out like you do on a 9N or a 2N. Just take your caps off, leave the distributor cap, just tip it off to the side so it's out of your way. Everything out of your way, but you can work on the distributor without having it falling in your face. On top is the rotor. We're going to take the rotor off. We'll set that off to the side. Underneath the rotor, there's a little metal clip that you got to get off. A little metal clip, I have it here in my hand. It's just to lock the rotor on. It's just a little metal clip. It comes right off the top of the shaft. Save that, because you'll be going to town for one if you lose it. Next, you got to get to the dust cap off. Dust cap comes off. You take that little clip off before you pop that dust cap off. And there's your points. They sit right on top of the plate. And we got to take them off. They're quite a bit easier to change than the ones in the 9N. So what I'm going to do now, so I'll go ahead and take my condenser off. Little screw on the side. Again, a self-starting screwdriver is going to be real handy to put all these little screws back in on the plate. I got that one off. And there's a nut over here on the side that holds the points. Your wire comes in the side, goes in. There's a little nut there. I loosen that nut up from the side. And you have to take the nut actually off. You can't get away with just loosening it up. You have to take the little nut right off the points. There it is. We'll set that off to the side. Your new points comes with a new nut. So if you lose it, drop it. Just as long as you don't drop it down inside. If you drop it down inside there, you got to get it out. So you don't want to start it up with loose parts down in there. I've got that loosened and off. Now I can take my condenser completely off. And just, we're going to throw that away and put a new one in. We got to take the points off the back plate. These ones are been in there for quite a while and they're really tight. So I take my screw out. Again, a self-starting screwdriver is going to make this job go a lot easier to put these back in. Now this one here is really over tightened. The screw is terrible, but we can get them. Now this one up here is kind of tricky. You don't want to drop that one down inside the distributor. I've taken the points right out, and there's a little strap that is on the points that goes on here. And the little strap comes out of here, and you can see it's right here. You want to inspect that, make sure that strap's not broke or damaged, because your new one's going to go in here, and that's how it gets its power from the wire here through an insulator and onto that strap. So I've taken the old points out, and we can look at them and see that they're really burnt quite bad. These are one-piece points also. The 9N has two-piece points. These are one-piece points. They're a little easier to put in, I find. One-piece points are easier to put in. I've got a new set of points here that we're going to put in. Just drop them right in there. Now they come with a double nut, or most all of them I've ever seen, come with a double nut right on them. Leave one nut on and take one off. So I'm going to take the top nut off, and we'll leave the other one on. This one here is not coming easy. I'm going to just leave it like that. I'm going to drop it into my strap. That's the hardest thing to put on is that strap. And then you got to get them in place. There it is. Now I got to get them little screws and start back in. Now I'm going to use a self-starting screwdriver to get them started. I think a little easier on myself. I'm going to put the bottom screw in. There's that. We'll follow with the top screw. Drop that in. Don't tighten them down because you got to adjust the gap yet. So you just want to get them in there so that the points are down to the base. The next thing I like to do before I go and adjust them is I like to put that strap on and go ahead and put my condenser in. Usually this distributor cap will stay right off to the side, so it'll stay out of our way. Hopefully it will. The condenser usually comes in two pieces, and you have to slide the little strap on. You have to slide it on so that your wire comes around the side. You want to keep the wire off to the side when you put it in too. The condenser is a little bit tricky to put in also without a self-starting screwdriver. It's really tough. So I'm going to slip the screw back into the screwdriver. I'm going to put that condenser right back in where it came from. Get that screw to start. Get it started. You want to make sure the condenser is not hanging over any so that you can get the distributor cap on and dust cap on without it interfering. I've got it on. Again, you got to get it tightened down a little bit because that makes your ground. You want to bend the wire over nice and neatly out of the way. Put it on there. I've got this pesky little nut onto the side here, and like I caution you, be careful not to drop it down into the distributor. I've got my wire on for the condenser. Now I'm going to set the point gap. Now you have to turn the lobe on the rotor so that the points are open on the lobe. I've got them open, and what I'm trying to obtain is it comes with a little piece of feeler stock that comes in the points. It's 20 thousandths of an inch. I put this feeler gauge in the gap there, and I've got about 20 thousandths of an inch right now open, and the lobe's on the high side. When you tighten these down, they tend to move. So after I get them all tightened down, now I want to take my feeler stock and put it back in there, make sure that I still got about 20 thousandths of an inch gap. And I do. And I'm going to go ahead, while I can look in there and see it, I'm going to grab the fan and put a little pressure on the belt. I'm going to roll the motor over so that it goes down on the flat side of the lobe. And I want to make sure the points close, and they do. So I just took the fan and I pulled it, and it turns, it rolls the motor over, and it turns the rotor so we're down on the flat side. Now that I've got that done, I've got to put my dust cover back on top now. The dust cover has a little arrow on it that says alignment slot, and that arrow points to your oiler tube here, where you put a drop of oil in here. We're going to do that also. Just stick a drop of oil in here, and that oil's a shaft and everything. Just got a little door that opens up, a little trap door, and put a couple drops of oil in there. It won't take very much, but it keeps that tube full of oil. I'm going to get an oil can and do that right now. I've got an oil can. I'm going to put a shot right in that tube there. There. Now I put oil in that there tube so it keeps the shaft oiled. I got to put my dust cover on. I'm going to put the dust cover on, and I've got to get that arrow. There's a slot. It drops in a slot. You'll feel it when it does. It locks in. It lays on flat. Got to make sure you get that on because then your distributor cap won't lay flat on top there. There's a little felt that goes on top. Now remember, we took that little metal keeper off the shaft. Here's the little metal keeper. It has a flat side. The flat part of it goes over top of the shaft and just pushes right down there. And it helps lock the rotor on. Now I've got the rotor, and it locks on also. Wiggle it down. Make sure it's all the way down. And it is. Now the cap on this tractor, the inside of the cap is in real good shape. We're not going to change it. If you worry, we just have the other cap beside you and just change wire for wire so that you can't get them confused. We don't want to take them all off at one time. Make sure the cap snaps on and it's tight. Give it a wiggle. Make sure the cap's tight. We've got our shaft oiled, our new points in. One thing we want to do here, we're going to go ahead and change the spark plugs too. Works a lot easier to change the plugs if you just use a 13/16 wrench. Just stick that wrench right on there and do it right from the side here. And it's a lot easier than trying to put a socket over because the gas tank's so close to the top of the spark plug. I'm putting H12 Champion plugs in. That's one heat range hotter than the tractor calls for. It calls for an H10. The H12 is just a little bit hotter. You take a tractor that's using just a tad bit of oil, or you're starting and stopping it and not getting it warm, an H12 is a lot better choice of a plug if you're not working it hard. So I'm going to go ahead and put all these plugs in it before I start it. The next thing we want to cover is the starter button on an 8-in. And this is on an 8-in only. The 9-in, the starter button is different, and I'll show you that in a minute. Right now, we're going to show you how to change a starter button in an 8-in Ford. To get down to the point where you determine that the starter button in floor is bad, the way that these starter buttons work, when you push the button down, you're grounding the wire that comes off it to ground. So you can take this is just a jumper wire with 2 alligator clip ends on it, and I clip it right onto the screw itself and just touch ground. And it does the same thing as if I push the button. And if you're pushing your button and the starter ain't rolling over, it's not the starter solenoid, it's this button that's bad. And these buttons go bad. And people look at that, well, I don't want to take transmission apart. They think you have to take the gear shift out. You don't. You leave the gear shift on the cover, take out the bolts and the pattern around it, simply take them off, and take all the bolts off. Leave the gear shift right on the tractor in neutral. The important factor here is to leave that thing in neutral. You don't want to have it in gear. You have to take the screw off the starter button. The thing you want to do before you do this is disconnect the battery. Because if you leave that screw hanging and it touches ground at any time, the tractor rolls over. So what we want to do is we want to take the battery cable right off the tractor, just either one of them, so that it can't short out here. Because if you take a screwdriver, you short this to ground, it tries to start. I've disconnected my battery cable, so now if I short this to ground, the tractor's not going to roll over and start up on me. I have to take the screw off that wire that goes to the button. Just take that screw out, save that, because the new button does not come with one. Just push the wire off to the side with the rubber boot and all. Then this cover will lift right off the tractor, gear shift and all. The thing that you have to be careful of is in the back of the cover here, there's a little tab that sticks out here. And that tab sticks out for a reason. There's a little plunger in there, and there's a ball bearing down in there, and that's your detent, your shifting rail, and you shift back and forth. So just make sure that spring stays in there. It doesn't stick to the lid when you lift it up and then you go carry it and set it down somewhere. You lose that spring. That's the only thing you got to worry about coming loose when you flip this upside down. Now the starter button has got a large nut from the bottom. It's down here in the bottom, and you have to get that nut off. A lot of times they are extremely tight. It takes a large wrench to get it off, a big crescent wrench or something. But anyhow, it's an 1/16 wrench. And there's little lock washers down there that you got to get off. I don't know if I can do it in this angle, but I'll try. I'll set it right there. There's little washer, has little tabs that bend up. You just got to get them out of the way so that you can loosen that nut up. That went pretty good. Now I can stick my 1/16 wrench on the nut and loosen that big nut up. And that's all about the starter button, right into the cover. You just take that big nut off, and the starter button will come right off the cover. Now you got to have the tractor in neutral. It works best to do this because it has a little button that keeps the tractor in neutral while you do this. That's where you can't start the tractor unless the tractor is in neutral. I'm just going to loosen the button up a little bit. Okay, I've loosened the button enough to let it come out. And just continue on taking that nut off. Just get the nut off. You want to save that nut and that washer because you got to put them back on. There. And that piece will come right off. And there's your starter button. Now to put the new one in, just take the new one out of the package. So the way we just took the old one out. Put it back in, put that large nut back on. Stick it right in there, and it's got a little groove in the side of the nut to where it can only go in one way so that it faces the right direction. So you can only put it in one way. You gotta get that groove to line up, and in it goes. Before you put it in, you gotta get all this here. This is your button to where the tractor has to be in neutral in order for that button to go through that hole. If the tractor's not neutral, it won't. So I'll just slip it back together, put my nut back on, and I'll be ready to put the cover back on. I've got the nut back on. I hammered my little lock washer back on. The thing to do is push the button and make sure that the button, see how the button sticks out the hole here? That's when the tractor's in neutral, is the button comes through the hole here. So you want to push and make sure that it's not bent or anything like that, and it comes right through the hole. Next thing you got to do is put your gasket back on, or put a new one on if the old one's broke. Make sure that that little spring that we talked about is in and back in the hole, or you won't have any detent when you shift the tractor. The tractor's in neutral, so you put it right straight down in the hole, which that's where neutral is going to be. It'll wiggle right into place. Put your gasket down, get everything lined up, wiggle it in a little, and there you are. You put your 10 bolts back in around the cover, and you're done. We've got all of our bolts back in the cover. We've got the button back in now. We put the wire back on and put the battery cable back up. Now the button will work. Now it'll work when you push the button. And remember, it just goes to ground. So that'll take care of your starter button problems. Now this is on an 8N Ford. We're going to show you the starter button on a 9N and on a 2N. They're different. We're back to the 2N model tractor, which is the same as a 9N. The starter button is different on these than it is on the 8N. The starter button that you see up here on the floor is not actually the contact that goes bad. All this is a rod. You push down, the rod goes all the way up front. The actual starter button is right here. And I can point to it with a screwdriver. You take your 2 screws off, your heavy cable that goes to the starter, just drags in and puts power across the 2. You want to unhook the battery before you tackle taking them off, or you'll create quite a short as soon as that battery cable touches the tractor. If you want to troubleshoot these, you can push the button, and if the tractor don't roll over, just take a screwdriver and short across them 2 bolts. You're going to do the same thing as the starter button. You just put the screwdriver across the 2 bolts, and it'll do the same thing. You'll know that that button's bad. Take the 2 screws out and replace that button. That one's much simpler to change than what we just went through on the 8N. While we're on this tractor here, we're going to talk about the oil levels. The transmission in a Ford tractor, 2N, 8N, or 9N, it doesn't matter which one you're talking about, they take 5 gallons of 90 weight gear lube. That's the gearbox, the hydraulic system, and the rear end. All one oil. You don't put hydraulic oil in a Ford 8N, 9N, 2N. Take this plug here out, where my finger is, you add oil here, goes into the gearbox, this is open between here, it'll flow into your hydraulic system. Around on the other side, back by your heel, is a dipstick. Pull a dipstick out, it'll say full and low, and you put it back in, you add here until you bring that up. That's your hydraulic, your ring and pinion for the rear end, your gearbox. All one oil, use 90 weight gear lube, and your hydraulics will be there. When wintertime comes, these are cast iron gearboxes. They get a lot of condensation. Drain the oil. I like to put a little kerosene in there, swish it around, drain it out. Kerosene will mix with the 90 weight gear lube, won't hurt the rear end, and it's a good way of flushing it out. Again, you'll see your problems around wintertime when your hydraulics will be sluggish because the oil will have water in it. Besides that, we're going to go to the brake system next and show you how to adjust the brakes. We're on a 2N tractor, which is going to be the same as a 9N tractor. The brakes are different on an 8N. We'll get to that in a minute. Right now, we're going to show you how to adjust the brakes on a 9N. On the back side here on a 9N, 2N, you got a stud sticks out. You can use a crescent wrench or a pair of channel locks or whatever you can get on them. And you'll hear it ratchet. Turn them, and they'll ratchet tight. And that'll expand the brake shoes. What you want to do is you want to rock the tractor when you do it, is you can get the shoe too tight where it'll drag as you move. The tractor will drag the shoes. We don't want to do that. So I give it a couple turns, make sure that they're not dragging. I'm going to turn it again. I'm going to give it a couple more turns. Okay, they're not dragging, but they're coming up tight, so I'm going to stop right there. And that's how easy it is to adjust the brakes on a 2N and a 9N. We'll go to the 8N and show you how to do those. Okay, we're on an 8N model tractor, which has a different rear end than the 9N and the 2N. Instead of having a knob out there that you can grab on and turn, they're like a car. You have to stick a screwdriver inside the little hole in the back of the brake drum. There's a little clip that goes over it and covers it. Snap them clips out, or yours might already be snapped out. Most of them are. Stick a screwdriver in there, you can feel the adjuster inside there, and it's threaded. And you just turn it sideways and click it. It'll just click right along with you. And what you're doing, you're just expanding the shoe again, just like you did on the other one. You want to rock the tractor just a little bit and make sure the shoes aren't dragging as you tighten. Keep tightening it until the spring gets tight. You can feel it get tight. Make sure it ain't rubbing. And there you are. You just adjusted the brakes on an 8N. I want to cover a little bit of quick troubleshooting on the electrical system on a Ford tractor. They're extremely easy, but there are 2 tricky little things that I can go over real quick with you and maybe get you out of trouble and save you an expensive repair. The coil on the front of the Ford tractor that has a front distributor has a little post sticks out the top, and I've clipped my end of my alligator clip right onto the top of the post of the coil. I'm going to take the other end of my alligator clip, I'm going to clip it on the hot cable of my battery. which is not the one that goes to ground, it's the one that goes on down to your starter. So I'm going to clip that on there. Now, I've run a wire hot from here to the top of my coil. I've eliminated the key switch, and I've eliminated that resistor under the dash. On a Ford tractor, there's a little porcelain resistor right under the dash here. They open up, and you won't have any spark. And this is an easy way you can tell. Now I turn the key off, the tractor doesn't shut off until you pull this off. It's a quick way to tell that your resistor under the dash is opened up or the ignition switch has gone bad. And you can do a quick process of elimination. Now if you clip it on here and you clip it right onto the coil and the tractor won't start, or you don't have spark, take your spark plug wire off and put a wire on it and ground it. If you don't have spark, then you know it's either your coil or your distributor. Something's wrong up there. So that's a quick way, a little quick troubleshooting to find out if that resistor's opened up or if your ignition switch is bad. Them two go bad a lot. I've seen that happen a lot on Ford tractors. That concludes the tune-up video. We have a complete rebuild video on the 8 and 9 and 2 in tractor. It goes over rebuilding the engine step by step. We take the engine out, show you how to rebuild the whole thing, do a valve job on it, put it back in the tractor, line up the clutch, and completely get it running. And if you think your tractor's smoking a little bit or it's a little bit tired, it's step by step, very easy to follow, no special tools. We go real easy and at a slow pace. Also, we have a Jubilee series, the 600, 700, 800, 900 Ford tractors. We have all of them on videotape, rebuild and tune-up. So if you're interested in those two tapes, write to the address at the end of this tape or buy it where you got this one. I want to give a big thanks to my wife Jennifer, who done the taping on this and also helped me with the editing and give me the incentive to do this tape. Also, I want to thank my father-in-law Guy, who's taught me an awful lot, took a lot of time with me and got me to the point where I know a lot about Ford tractors because of him. So a great big thanks to Guy. Also, thanks from J&D Productions for buying the tape. Thank you.